Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 2 of our interviews or guests. Today we have Joel Birkey with us to 3H, and we'll kind of be talking through a little bit about his background. We'll get into more details in a little bit, but just to kind of list kind of where our relationship started and as far as introduction goes. So I met Joel, I guess would have been, I was doing some internships in Dallas. And at the time, I was in high school, and I think you were the youth pastor at the church. And that's where I first met you. So, I already kind of had a glimpse into your life a little bit, but really didn't get more connected until after I met Emily. And then from there, obviously, our lives have kind of been meshed because of Emily and Megan. And, so I've been able to catch a glimpse of your journey from Texas now to North Carolina. And so just excited to hear about that journey from obviously the beginnings to, and maybe some things I didn't know already, hopefully. Thanks, Joel, for coming on. Anything you'd like to add as an introduction?
Glad to be on. I'm excited about this journey and it's gonna be good.
Kind of to set the scene a little bit, we're gonna kind of rewind quite a bit. So I, again, because I knew a little bit about you then, and I've had different conversations with Emily because she's always talked about what a good friend that you had been when she first went to school and then when you guys went to Crown. So she's really seen that as far as a personal side from there to here. She also talked a lot about your father and how influential he was at Temple. So kind of all that kind of put together, um, your father's influence on your own life, as well as obviously your brothers, played a significant role in shaping who you are today. How did his values and parenting style impact your early life and then the decisions that you've made as an adult?
It's been a ministry of whole life, but currently they're moving to North Carolina actually next month, so they'll be living here with us. But yeah, so that's some news. But yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I would not be the man where I'm at today if it wasn't for my dad. He instilled uh, two major things into my life. God, obviously work in the ministry, love God, and work hard. And so those were two things that he instilled in me as far as values, and those core values I've carried all the way. Now, haven't changed some as far as the way that I look at them, 100%. But as far as those values, that is where I'm at today because of them, and I attribute all of that hard work, my dedication to the church, because of seeing him growing up. I would come downstairs and he'd be, 5 a.m. He'd be reading the Bible, praying, and then he'd get up and he'd work till dark. So it's just how he lived, and as a young age, obviously we didn't have a choice. He worked in the church, so we were there Sunday night, Wednesday night conferences. We lived in the church, and if we weren't in the church, we were working. So you know, is it good, bad? I say good because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for those values that he instilled in me. Um, I didn't have a choice in those, but I haven't turned away from those, so I'm still holding true to those values and those things that he instilled into me. So yeah, his example is definitely of what he exemplified where I'm at today.
Have kind of those values, love God and work hard, have any of those in one point or another been challenged by either the people around you or by just your life in general? That was like, oh, maybe I'm working too hard, or maybe I can not, maybe not necessarily love God less, but maybe not be as involved as my dad was.
Have a balance. It was church and work, and that was it. I can look back in my childhood, and that's what it was. And so coming out into my own adulthood, having my own kids, obviously I wanted there to be a little more of a balance. I'm not bashing him for what he did, but that's just he lived in the ministry, he worked in the ministry, and that's what he taught me. But coming out of that, obviously that's evolved. Those core values haven't changed, but the idea that I want to have a balance of like enjoy life and work hard, I still don't have that balance. I still sometimes work too much, but I try to have a balance where I enjoy life, around the kids as much as I can, and still have that balance. So I would say the core of it has not changed, but obviously the way that I go about it might have changed just by observing the way that I grew up. So
I remember in talking with Emily, the values that your family held were very strict in a lot of ways, very conservative, and so seeing, no tattoos, no, no drinking, like all those, those lists of things that would say, oh, well, as a conservative would not be acceptable. But, I've seen obviously kind of this adjustment, maybe not necessarily loosening, but maybe just a different understanding. And so, as you've kind of loosened up, how have you reconciled your father's influence with the changes in your own beliefs and perspectives? And what was that, or was that a challenging process?
Last question. It was definitely a challenging process. Coming out of, I had to find who I was, and so it took me a while to figure that out. Obviously, the way that I view and the way that I live my life is now the core. If I can go back to the core values, they're the same, but as far as the way I go about them, back to yada yada yada, that obviously doesn't align with his views or his values, or I guess his values. The morals are the same, but the values are obviously different. And so when I made that shift to move into my own lane and how I felt like God called me to lead my family and a lifestyle that I wanted to live. There was some challenges there because it did not align with what he thought it should be. I grew up, like I said, in a very strict household, and ministry was everything. And so, for their view of being in the ministry, you want to call it that, was you had to pull a paycheck from a church. Working in the secular world would not be considered ministry. His view of that has changed in the 7 years that I've been out of the ministry. Obviously, he's moving here next month and going to start working in the business that I've made or started. So obviously, his view of that has changed in even just the last year. So, but yeah, it was very challenging because I had this. Obviously, he was my father, and I wanted to respect him, and I wanted him to be proud of me. But I also had to follow what God had for me and the way that I felt like I needed to lead my family. And when those things split into two different ways, and I started following the path that God led me down, even though it was different from the way that He thought it should be. There was challenges there. It might not have been like verbal, but it definitely created some. Well, when are you going to get a job back in the church? When are you going to start doing this? And so I had to explain that and reiterate that, and no explaining that I could do it. Really, it was just me living it out. And now that I've lived it out for 7 years of being, because I worked in the church obviously for 5 years before moving into what we call secular world. And so it took a long time, a lot of explaining, a lot of just living out my life. Like, I can still raise my family and work outside the church and still have fulfillment in supporting the church that I work in as a volunteer. So there was some challenges there,
Mhm.
but now we've worked through those. We, got over them. And like I said, he's moving here and he's going to not be in what we call full-time ministry. So it's been an
Yeah.
interesting process, but yeah, it was challenging, but you gotta go the direction that God calls you, and that's what I did, and He's seen that. So
Yeah. Do you think do you think you missed out on anything during your childhood?
I worked too much. I mean, I was pushing a lawnmower at 7, 8 years old, so I didn't really have I mean, I played basketball, so it was church in church all the time, pushing a lawnmower, basketball. And that was my life as a child. That's about all I did. And so, do I wish there would have been more balance there? Yes, but like I said, I'm thankful and grateful for what I had to go through because I'm here today because of it. I've observed that, and instead of being bitter about it, I just said, "This is how I'm going to lead my family now," and he's okay with that, and I'm okay with that, and I'm moving in a different direction as far as how I'm going to raise my kids. I wouldn't change it. Even though I look back and I say, yeah, I could have hung out with friends more. I could have done this more. Maybe not been so heavily in this area, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Else. So,
You've got a twin brother, not identical twins, but twin brother. Um,
exactly.
so you're older, wiser, all of that, stronger. Did this wasn't a part of the original layout, but did you guys grew up together, did everything together, high school together, college together, I'm assuming work together, play basketball, like, all those things together. When kind of the values that you said that you kind of adjusted or got reacquainted with, when those started to change, was it something that you and your brother were doing? Was it something that, he was like, no, I still believe all these things and they need to remain the same? Like, or was it like a mutual, like, we both have to figure out who we are?
I think we both had to figure that out, but if we're talking the lane that we grew up in, my brother would be more in that lane. Maybe he's weird coming to say me. Like all these are just words that we use like more going from conservative to more like contemporary things that I do. He obviously would not agree with or do, but so he'd be more in that lane. So he's still, to be honest with him, he's still trying to find himself. So he's still trying to figure those things out. Where I just kind of went the other direction. So I mean, I think we both are figuring it out, but we're not in this. We didn't both go in the same direction. He's kind of taking his path that God's called him to, and I've taken the direction that I've been called to.
Do you think that Megan had anything or a lot or a little to do with kind of that progression?
I mean, she balanced me out and gave me a different view on uh, the world and what life is. And so working, I think we also both grew in the same direction. The person we were in college and when we met, the values that we had there, we have changed drastically since that point. And so both we both grew together in that journey, which I think that's what happens to a lot of couples is they don't grow together. They grow one grows in one direction, one grows another, and then that's why we see so many people our age getting divorced, 5, 10 years out of college because they've both gone different directions. Thankfully, we grew together in that journey, and so through conversations and just living out our life and working in ministry for the 5, 6 years we did, we grew together in that. So obviously she didn't push me in that direction, but we grew together in creating what God calls to and how we want to produce our family and what we wanted to do. So yeah, but she definitely had a part in that.
And I'm sure even now, kind of with this transition, I'm sure she's been a huge help as you jump into the entrepreneur realm. What motivated you to take that step into becoming an entrepreneur? And was there a particular moment or experience that made you feel that this right now was the right time to make that change?
It's funny because I can look back on the last 8 years of my life, and I can see that like I wondered why coming out, so I left Charlotte as a teacher, came here working landscaping, and then went into pest control, and I was like, what's happening? What am I doing? Like jumping from career to career to career, and now that I look back, using every one of those steps to bring me to the point where I'm at today to create the business that I've started to see that. But to go back to the question, motivation was a mentor of mine. It's my group leader at church, and so he's been my same group leader for 7 years, and he's been telling me for years, "Oh, you gotta start a business, you gotta start, you have these qualities, and you work too hard to just work for somebody. You need to work for yourself." And he would always just tell me, even to the point like, "I'll help invest in the company and get you started." And so he was a huge influence on that factor. It was kind of funny the way that it started was I thought it was going to be me doing the work, him doing the business side, and we were going to do this thing as a partnership. Well, once I got all the licenses and got out there, he pulled back and said, "Oh yeah, you got this. Well, you can do it." He was like, "I'm just here to support you. I'm not in on this business. You're doing it." I was like, "Okay, well it's too late. I'm doing it." So he was a huge help. He didn't trick me into it, but he definitely was. He saw something that I didn't see. Um, you asked the question. The last question was there a moment in time that you felt like you could do it? Uh, there was no certain time. If you're waiting for a time to start a business, you'll just keep on waiting, keep on waiting. You're never ready. What I did is just plan, obviously, but there's a point where you just got to pull the trigger and say, let's just jump out in faith and do this thing. And so that's what we did 4 months ago. We just said, God, we don't know what's going on. I can't balance a business and full-time work anymore. So we just did it. So there wasn't a specific time that I could say, yes, I am ready to start this business. I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
I still don't feel ready, and there's not a certain time that I would say, but it's just go out on faith and see what happens. Yeah.
Now, I guess remind me and obviously the people listening, what is your business and just, name kind of what you do and all
It's
that.
called Berkey Outdoor Services, so my name's on there. But it's a outdoor service business, And so I took my background in landscaping and I took my background in pest control and basically merged into two, well, it's actually multiple companies because I can do pool. I'm certified as a pool technician as well. So basically anything outside in the yard, the pool, lighting, landscape design, cutting the grass, taking care of. Eventually, there'll be power washing and window cleaning, and that stuff will be added in. Basically, a company that we could show up and do pest control. We can do basically everything that you need outside. We're going to handle it. So it's with design,
Yeah.
need beds redone, all that. So you see a lot of companies doing one thing. They're just cutting
Hmm.
grass. They just do this, and I found there was a huge gap in quality. And so why not just create a company where you already know what the quality is, so why not hire them for all these things? And also, why write a check to your pest guy, your mosquito guy, your pool guy, your lawn guy? You have all these checks going out. You could pay one person, they show up and do all
Right.
of it with quality work and affordability. So turned into almost kind of like insurance. So the more things you add on, the more discounts I can give you because I don't have to move my truck. I can show up and stay on your property all day and do whatever you need. So
Yeah.
that's the thought process is gone and it's, the model is taken off and it's good, but it's basically an outdoor service business where I just serve people and help them with their outdoor needs.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard this analogy before, but um, for a restaurant, obviously not the same thing, but for a restaurant, if you go to a place and they have 10 things on their menu, you're like, okay, these 10 things, they must be the best 10 things I've ever had because that's all they had. Versus you go to a place like Chili's, no offense to Chili's, we like Chili's, but no offense to Chili's. You go there and the menu's, it's huge. There's so much on that. So it's like, how do you, in your case, how do you manage? So a lot of those people probably do one thing because they're like, okay, let's just do one thing really, really well. Versus, so how do you maintain that quality consistency over all of those areas?
So right now it's not a problem because I know how to do all of those things, and so I can provide the quality because I've been in those industries doing all of those things. So I can provide that quality. Obviously, the challenge will be is I bring onboard people, not only be the grass. So how do I teach them how to do that? And so that's going to obviously become a challenge to have quality throughout the entire service industry, and it's going to just come down to training and making sure people know what they're doing. Obviously, I have the capability because I have multiple businesses. I can create one guy that only knows how to do pools, and he can run the whole pool route, and then have a pest control guy who's only has background in pest control. So I essentially could create multiple businesses out of it. But right now, I can provide the quality because I do it, but as I onboard people, then I'm just train and teach and be a lot of hand. It's gonna cause some challenges, but if you find the right people, it'll go.
So how do you bring your faith into your business decisions? And does it help you navigate the uncertainties of being an entrepreneur?
Obviously, faith is everything. I mean, it's the core of who I am and what I run my business off of, what I teach my kids, what I have my marriage based on. Everything that I do is based on my faith, and so obviously has a huge impact on my business. Now, obviously, it's not a church. I don't promote, my church unless it comes up in conversation with clients. We're called to love God and serve others, and so obviously, I'm in a service industry, and so thing that I do on a daily basis is serving people. And so it impacts how I communicate to my clients. They're not just a person that I'm pulling a check from, even though they're paying, for all my stuff. They're paying, I'm providing a service, they're giving me money. But at the end of the day, it has to do with serving them. And so if that's stopping for 10 minutes and having a conversation about, who their son lost his house in in the then I'll stop and have that conversation. And that's what God called me to. And so, yeah, they're going to provide me with a check at the end because that's what they're paying for. But at the end of the day, that's how I operate my business. And even though I might not bring up my faith and, push God on them or say, hey, this is where I go to church, but they see, people see God and Christ through us and how we act. And so every day I operate, I try to keep that as the main focus. And that's why I am doing what I'm doing. It's because obviously every decision I make try every decision I make to have that focus on what's the why behind what I'm doing and the decisions that I'm making. Does it always work out? No. I mean, I make decisions based on money all the time. Like, oh, do this and get this money, but I got to always go back to why am I doing this? What's the purpose of this? And so my faith drives all those decisions.
And now, so entrepreneurship, obviously father, husband, involved in the church. So raising three kids, oldest is a son, two daughters, all that stuff. How do you manage the demands of being a husband alongside your roles as a father and as an entrepreneur? Kind of more focus on the relationship between you and Meg.
That's a tough question because that word balance. I'm still trying to figure that one out. It's a constant battle trying to balance out life and kids, and then there's through marriage, and that's obviously got to, you know, my kids is one, and then my wife. So it's constant, and unfortunately, because I own a business, it never stops. So when I work a W-2 job, I can, work and I'm done, and then I come home and I can somewhat, guess and be present. When you're in a business, you're out working all day, then you come home and there's computer work. I mean, it's always with me. I got my phone, I got my computer, and it just never stops. So it's been a struggle. I'd say that's the of owning a business and the stress that comes with. Balancing life has been probably the hardest thing that I've had to face just because it doesn't stop, and I'm always on the back of my mind. I'm always thinking about it, and so I've had to learn how to set boundaries and to. I'm still working on this, but just creating a separation between my work life and then I come home and then I'm a dad and then I'm a husband and I have to create that. Sometimes I think what really got me was one day Megan said at the end of the night after dinner, we came home. I was, I thought I was playing with the kids or, having a good time. And then she said, I feel like you're here, but you're not here. And that kind of like, yeah, is still in my mind. And she can see that. And so can my kids, even though they didn't see that. And so I've really had to start setting some boundaries of, computer shut, phones off, and I try to separate that. And then when I'm home, in that time, I'm a dad and I'm a husband, and they need that attention. So that balance it's been a struggle, and I'm still working on it. But I'm just creating boundaries of trying to separate that, trying to navigate all that. But it's definitely important. It's something I'm still working on. But yeah, got to have those boundaries.
And you kind of mentioned already when you come home, shutting off phone, laptop. Is there anything else or anything else that you're practicing or any other routines that you have found helpful? Obviously something that we haven't mentioned here is obviously health or physical health. Now you're obviously working outside too, but for a lot of people, like myself included, I'm like, I'm working a hotel, so it's not like I'm pumping iron or pushing a lawnmower, I'm not doing certain things. So I have to find time, I believe, to work out and stay healthy in that way. So is that involved right now? Or are you mostly focused on kids, job, and that's it right now?
No, it's definitely one step at a time. Personal physical health has not. I've not worked out in probably 6 to 8 months. I mean, I need to get there, and I know every day I wake up, I know I need to get there, but um, I'm trying to implement my quiet time in the morning. That's something I finally started doing, which has been very important for my mental health and just my spiritual health. And then, yeah, focusing on the kids. And so, turning the computer, turning the phone off when I get home, at least between the time I get home until the kids go to bed, and then I have time to think. Doing that has been helpful. My weekend, so I try not to work Saturday or Sunday. Sunday church, Saturdays for family, and try to just guard those times. Sometimes I might have to do a little bit of work on Saturday, but try not to leave the house and do any jobs on Saturday or Sunday. That's family time and church time. So that's been huge. There's always work, so I could always work the weekends if I wanted to, but I try to just block the schedule and say, nope, it's not going to happen. I also try to make it to every baseball game. I know it doesn't always happen. There's probably been one or two I've missed, but for the most part, I make it a point. Like my son sees me at his game, he knows I'm going to be there, and so that's been huge guarding that time. As a kid, I remember growing up. My dad didn't play any sports, but I don't think he ever missed one baseball game or one basketball game. They were always there, and I still remember that. So I want to be there for him. I know she's gonna remember that looking back, like my dad was sitting out there. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely setting those boundaries, being at games, and then being present. So trying to find that thing in my brain that I can shut off work for at least 4 or 5 hours, when I get home, or 3 hours, or even if just an hour, and making sure that I'm present. So not just being here, but also being engaged and making sure that they see that I'm home and I'm a dad, I'm a
Yeah.
father. So yeah, those setting those boundaries. But then there might be other ones that I need to work on, but right now I'm trying to implement those. And I'll get down to the physical health and maybe get up at 4 instead of 5 and try to work out. But right now, sticking to family and my spiritual health, and then kind of work through that.
Now, this journey that you've had, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, personal growth, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind for your kids, especially in terms of your values and how you live out your faith?
I mean, I think one of the big reasons I'm doing all of this is to leave a legacy, to leave something with them, not just monetarily, but morals and work ethic and those type of things. And so, uh, yeah, I want my kids to, when they grow up and they're my age, I want them to know that, dad worked hard, we love God. I mean, just like what my dad did. Love God, work hard, and have fun. So all three of those things, and be generous. I mean, the reason I started business was so that I could give back to other people. Obviously, make a living. That's like a secondary thing that comes with it is work hard, you help others, and then a benefit of that is you get an income, you get paid for it. So I want my kids to look at me and say, yeah, your dad worked hard, but he also gave back. He, volunteered at church. He helped the people that he was, servicing every single day. So leaving that legacy of, you know, God and loving others is what I leave behind. And then obviously on down the road, I'll leave them hopefully a business and money that, monetary, but more than that, I want it to be spiritual and the morals that I leave behind for them, and just that's what he was at the games. He loved God. He worked hard. Having that balance, I want them to see that balance because growing up, I didn't see a lot of that balance, and so I want them to see. Now, am I going to get it perfect? No, but I want them to know that I had fun, I love God, and I worked hard, and I want to see that balance. And so,
Mhm.
kind of legacy I want to leave behind with them and try to instill those morals in them. Now, are they going to change their view like I did? Possibly, but I want those core values to always be the same as I pass it on.
Do you feel any more of a pressure to be a good father to your son or to your daughters, like with this kind of as they grow up, or is it pretty much equal between them?
There's a whole lot different than raising son. My son is the oldest. I think sometimes I'm naturally harder on him, and plus he's a boy, so I want him to be, be the man. But no, it's definitely different. And I've struggled. I have to figure out that, you know, I've got to treat them all the same, but yet, so sometimes I'm a little harder on him because he's older and he's the boy, and then I have two girls, obviously. So it is different, but I mean, there is reminds me of it, but yeah, you shouldn't treat them like they did. You wouldn't do that to Gemma. So I have to always be like, oh yeah, I got to back up here because I don't know if it's just how I was raised or what, but yeah, sometimes I'm a little harder on it. So there is a pressure there, and I gotta find that balance where they don't, make sure favoritism. Be harder on one man. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely something that I'm working on, but um, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame these days. So, yeah.
No, there've been a few moments where I've reacted or, pushed August in some way and, she's like, relax, relax. He's only two, he's only three. I'm like, I want him to be, that strong. I want him to be the leader, all those things that we want, but at the same time, find that balance between, okay, like he's still, 3 or 4, whatever that age is at the time. So yeah, that's something. So you mentioned this people that you surround yourself with. Where should young men find those like-minded people?
Well, being a person of faith and being heavily involved in the church is the perfect place for that because most likely they're going to be like-minded like you are. I mean, you got some crazies out there that they're even in the church, but you got to find those people. And for me, I found them inside it inside the church. I mean, there's a couple people maybe outside in the workforce, but because my faith is everything to me and it's the core of what I do. Finding a business person that also has a faith aligned like I do, I found them, inside the church, and so that's where that's where I found my core people is inside the church.
So did you walk around with the sign saying like I'm looking for someone with business experience, or how did
No,
how did you
it was
find them
nice.
within the church?
No, I mean, for me, it was just through conversation, and God kind of just brought these people into my life. And it, like my ego leader that pushed me into doing this. I mean, that was 7 years ago. I didn't have plans to start a business 7 years ago, but God knew that I was going to be in this position, and so He brought that person in my life to, and he's been a mentor for 7 years since I've been here. So, I think it's just when you
Mhm.
put yourself where God called you to, He's going to bring the right people into your life. So I didn't search for any people. They just kind of God brought them into my life through circumstances, and today they're a huge part of keeping me straight. So
In this world now, starting this business and obviously kids, all of that, in a world that pushes instant success or immediate success, what do you believe is the most important quality to cultivate for long-term fulfillment and purpose, both personally and professionally? Or I guess what does the ultimate success look like?
that word immediate success. We live in a world where everything is not going to get the richest, the fastest, and we base as an entrepreneur. A lot of times, if you're talking to another entrepreneur, it's well, how much did your business make this year? How much money? It all goes down to how much did you make, and that's the world we live in. Like the bigger house, the bigger car, the bigger this, the how. I retired at years old. Like it's like we're always looking for this immediate like success is based on a monetary value. That part of the question was the fulfillment part. That fulfillment, where do you find that fulfillment? I almost guarantee you it's not in money. In the journey that I came through coming to Charlotte, I went from one to another career and I doubled my income in that one transition, just in that one shift. You would have told me in the prior job that I would have done that, I would have said, well, I'm gonna be the happiest guy in the world. I want to like, I don't have any care in the world, buddy. That would be awesome. It's funny. I lived in that life and I made that transition, not even knowing it's happening to me, and I still wanted more. I still had that fulfillment. The fulfillment came with faith and family, and so it all goes back to now. I've transitioned. I left all that and went into the stress of owning a business. So, but I feel more fulfilled now than I did because more flexibility to be at home with my family. I feel like I'm pouring into other people. And so the fulfillment, you got to find what fulfills you. And so when you find those areas and start pouring into them, most likely it's not money. It's Success is not money. It's who did I care for today? Did I spend time with my family? And when you start to pour into those areas of your life, you're going to feel that fulfillment and makes you happier. So focus on
Mhm.
the money, even though money is everything though too, right? Because you got to pay your bills and you got to. So it's like
Mhm.
a double-edged sword. Like you got to focus on that, but you got to. The main focus for me is faith and family. If I focus on those two things, I'll feel fulfilled, and then God will provide all the rest of the stuff. He'll provide the success as far as monetary in the business. If I just focus on the things that I need to focus on. One thing I write in my prayer journal and try to read it when I if I get up every morning when I'm supposed to do it, it's calling us to be a successful business owner so that I can provide my family and live generously to give to others. And so I have one and the other, but the focus is faith and family. And then I do that because I own a business and because so you have to have that, if there's that balance there again, so you have to focus on the business to make money, but also the main focus is faith and family. So that faith is important.
Can you repeat one more time that sentence that you read or pray from your journal?
Calling is to be a successful business owner so that I can provide for my family and give generously to
Well, well, a lot to think about. I appreciate you talking with us, Joel. And I don't. Hopefully, this isn't the last time. I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to catch up and maybe dive deeper into one of these other subjects, or maybe a subject that maybe you feel passionate about that you think some other young men would like to hear about within your own realm over there in North Carolina that you see. But either way, I appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah.